does that look? So if I stay away from there, I won't get the shadow of the phone. Hello, I'm back. I'm glad my tea's still hot because I've done all of the things that one does when one tries to be a podcaster, which is set the scene, light the candles. Got one behind my head there, might move that. Oh, nobody told the dogs I'm podcasting. Someone's at the door. Someone's at the door. Yes, it was the post. So let's have a look. I think it's a pair of shoes. I've got a few things to go to. Various things where you need to look sort of smart, which is not something I'm very good at doing these days. And I don't want to be standing around on high-heeled feet. Now you see, the thing is, my clothes are either, oh bunny sniffing. My clothes are either rags for the garden or homemade things that I just, or secondhand stuff that I just wear daily, or ball gowns and heels. I don't really have anything in between. So recently I've been very carefully thinking about the sort of smart casual wardrobe, the classics, the things that would take me through the rest of my life. So I've really thought about, when shopping for things, I've thought, would Audrey Hepburn wear this? And if the answer is no, then I move on and look elsewhere. I mean, obviously I'm 6 times the size of Audrey Hepburn, but I do feel that her classic clothing rules kind of applies to everybody. Hello. So I got some shoes. I'm off eBay. New without tags. Ralph Lauren. Don't you know? Oh my gosh, these really are new. Still in the plastic bag. They don't even look like they've been tried on. Oh, they look like canoes. I do have big feet, but oh, I wonder if they're going to fit. I'll be back at some point, I don't know when, but I've just blown out my candle and blown wax all over my glass cake stand. Rawr! I'm back. I think I'm going to return these shoes. Look how much that's where my toe ends there. That's crazy. There's that much toe sticking out. Well, I've got big feet as it is. I don't need them to look any bigger. Look at that funny vein there. Isn't that weird? My dad's got exactly the same one. Yeah, I think I shall return these. What a shame. They were such a bargain as well. Look at the mess. These are my cinnamon swirl socks, DK, knitted in Beaches and Birdsong yarn called Pebbles. And the cinnamon swirl pattern, it's not showing up very well here. It's a lovely one by Jules. So Sweet Violet, and yeah, really, really pretty. Got this lovely swirling stitch texture pattern. Not that you can see it because the light's peculiar. Right, I'm just going to pop these shoes back and deal with my disappointment. That's a shame about these shoes, but never mind, at least I can return them. What a pity. That goes in there. In that short interlude, there will have been just a split second for you. I've just had to fill out a load of building regs forms for the barn, which I did have a question. Can you have a nose around there? Yes, you can, but not yet, because we're drying our bell tent carpet up there, so it's all a bit of a mess. And Phil, our lovely builder friend, is coming back to finish off the tiles and do a few other bits up there, and then it's completely done, and then I'll titivate it, make it all lovely, and then I'll show you. The light keeps changing quite badly today, so forgive me for that, because I've been wanting to do a podcast or a vlog or something for absolutely ages, about a month. And I keep saying to myself, get all of your jobs done and then you can sit and waffle in front of the camera. But I don't know what it is, but the days keep just running away with me. So I've made some notes, and I'm just gonna crack on and get this done. Did I tell you? Remember I said that I had to go for a CT scan because of a familial history of brain problems, and that my youngest cousin had just had, not long ago, a brain aneurysm, and her consultant said that anybody related to her dad, my dad and our grandfather had to go and have brain scans. So I went and had a brain scan, and they found nothing. I mean, literally nothing. They found a small little pecan nut at the top of my spine, and that is my brain. So that's good news. There's nothing wrong with my brain. Well, my husband would argue that there's quite a lot wrong with my brain, but medically it's looking good. Talking about husband and medically, Toby is doing Caterham Academy car racing, and he's having a lovely time. But in order to qualify physically fit to be able to do this sort of, it's like, he's not even here, but I'm going to whisper it because I don't think he's going to watch this one, especially if I say it's a podcast, not a vlog. He's doing, it's like middle-age pretend Formula One. They take it very seriously. But it is serious. Anyway, so he had to pass a sight test, and he was very worried that he wouldn't be able to do it because he is marginally colourblind with the colours red and green. And that is why he wasn't able to go into the Royal Air Force and be a pilot, which is what he'd always wanted to do. So that was really devastating for him when he was, 19, 20, 21, something like that, to find out that his vision was not good enough. And so, yeah, he became a builder instead. And anyway, it turns out that had he had got better advice, his colour blindness is so marginal that he would have been able to have been a fighter pilot. So his crisis is even worse. Poor bloke. Bunny, the lump under here, when they were doing her scale and polish on her teeth, they aspirated it and it's come back completely clear. It's probably scar tissue built up from, she's got a scar under here. Gosh, that looks weird, doesn't it? That looks like a snake. Look, there's its eyes. It's bizarre. She's got a scar here, and it goes right the way through, and you can see it must have come up through her tongue because she's got a corresponding scar through her tongue. So it's just scar tissue. She's fine. She had 5 teeth out though, because the 4 canines, she'd broken them quite badly when she was in the killing station for 4 months in Spain. She bit the bars constantly to try and escape, and those teeth had reached the end of their life. They were causing problems. One of them had an infection that went up into the bone, so it was good to get that sorted. She was quite poorly afterwards. She felt very, very sorry for herself, and she then had an infection, a secondary infection, so she was quite poorly, and she had a temperature, but it didn't stop her from leaping around like a lunatic. I mean, she's about 10 years old, and yet she still flies around like an absolute psycho, and jumping up at the window when the postman came and wanting to go on walks and run around, and she's just incredible, really, that dog. What to tell you next? Oh, the next thing to tell you, keeping with the animal theme, is this is very sad. 3 weeks ago, Bill's hamster Lucy died. Very, very, very unexpected. On Friday, I filmed her. I filmed her, and that was the day that I filmed my last podcast vlog. And she was climbing up her cage and just doing all of the Lucy things that she did. Anyway, cut a long story short, Tuesday night, she was behaving very strangely. It was like she had vertigo or labyrinthitis or something. And Wednesday morning, I took her to the vets, and the vets just said, we can't do anything for her. So they put her down, and I howled. I absolutely howled. Can't talk about it too much more, or I'll set myself off. I'll cry on the podcast yet again. There's two things that I shouldn't be doing. I shouldn't be crying or singing on the podcast. Bill was devastated, just so upset. In fact, last night he came downstairs and he was all weepy because he just still misses her so much. She was an incredible hamster. Her character and how she just loved us and would come out when she heard her name. So she's got a lovely little grave under the walnut tree, and we've planted some cyclamen, and it's precious. I'm just going to scribble off some things. So we have Lucy buried in the garden, and the other day we had a heifer in the garden. A beautiful black and white massive cow in the garden.
Come on, you. You don't belong in my garden. Let's go. Well done. Let's go. It's all right. Let's go out this way. She's a baby. Look, no others. Goop, goop. No. Goop, goop, goop. Goop, goop. Goop. Good girl.
She'd got out. Some ramblers had left a gate open, and she just decided to go for a walk. Now, I do quite fancy my own dairy cow, but I would. A commercial dairy cow is not what I need. Their yield is way too much. They eat way too much. They're too big. If I was to get a dairy cow, I'd have a Jersey cross. I'm not really going to get a dairy cow. So that was good fun though. I quite enjoyed that excitement. We had half term recently. We went up to London. Ted didn't come because Ted's my middle son. If you're new here, I never introduce myself or tell you anything about me. You just have to kind of guess and watch old videos if you're so inclined. Ted's my middle son, and he goes to an agricultural school, and when he's home he works down on the farm. So he didn't come to London with us, but Wilf and Bill and I went up to London, caught the train, and caught up with some of my oldest friends from school, and just had a lovely time being in each other's company. We didn't manage to talk much at all. There were so many children around, and we were on very noisy tubes, in a very noisy restaurant, and then in a very noisy trampoline park. But just to be together was gorgeous. However, on the way home, I felt so sick on the train, and I thought it was travel sickness. But the next day I still felt really poorly, and then Bill felt poorly, and then Wilf had a properly upset tummy. So I think we might have caught something. But that scuppered my being able to meet up with Sarah, who was over from Gibraltar. Sarah was part of the group of girls that met in London on the Tuesday, but she was flying back home to Gibraltar from Bristol, and of course I live really close to the airport, so we were going to go out for supper together. But that didn't happen, which was a shame, because we could really have done with a good chat. We didn't get opportunity. It's getting dark. Try and brighten things up a bit without making me look spooky. I will get onto the knitting in a minute, I promise. Because you can see I have a finished knitted item here. It's doing peculiar things. My friend from China, who's lived over here for years and years and years, applied for her British citizenship, applied for her British citizenship and was bestowed it, and asked me if I would like to go along to the ceremony. Of course, I'm here for anything like that. I'm there for anything for her in general, actually. But it was wonderful, really enjoyed it. It was in the historic town hall in the centre of Bristol, and that was brilliant in itself. I wish that we'd been able to have a bit more of a tour and an explore. It was a magnificent building, and it was a really heartwarming experience because there was every continent on the planet represented in that room. Such massive diversity, and all of the people who were receiving their British citizenships were together in a group, and they all had to go through the various swearing in, I suppose it is. And then all of the friends and the family were set back together, and it was just really lovely how everybody from different religious backgrounds, different political beliefs, different walks of life, history, points of reference, we all just came together as human beings, and it was such an uplifting and beautiful atmosphere. It was gorgeous. Everybody was congratulating everybody and taking pictures for people. It was just really, really struggling to find the word, a poignant word that will nail it in one, what it was like, because it really was, I want to say life affirming, but I think that's not what I'm after. That's not the word I'm after. All the same, I was so glad to have experienced that, especially at the moment with the state of the world. And you guys abroad there are probably laughing at us poor Brits, the state of our political system at the moment. What a blooming mess. How embarrassing. It's bad enough whenever the House of Lords gets televised and they're all leering and jeering and at each other. Oh, can't they just behave themselves? Ridiculous. Okay. Oh, one more thing to talk about before I get on to the knitting is, if you've been watching Vlogtobers, and if you have been watching specifically Ali, This Little Wonderful Life, and Sarah, Yarn Mugs, if you've been watching their vlog, you will have seen that on the, what date would it have been? It was Sunday, 26th of October. Let me just check. I had to check. Sunday the 23rd of October, I met up with Ali, Sarah, and another Sarah called Sarah One Daisy on Instagram, and Emma from Aldenwood Craft podcast. Emma wasn't vlogging. Sarah One Daisy, she doesn't participate, but Sarah Yarn Mugs and Ali, This Little Wonderful Life, vlogged about our day. So if you want to see any of that, go and have a look. I think they both together captured it really beautifully. We had such a nice time. Such a lovely time. And I just want to do it again. Just want to do it again. So I'm quite glad in a way that Vlogtober is over, because I felt I was missing out because I wasn't vlogging. But also, my friends who I talk to regularly on WhatsApp who are vloggers, obviously they can't do both. There's not enough time. So I kind of missed them. So I'm glad to have them back. Did you watch any Vlogtobers? Which ones did you watch? I really only kept up with a few just because of time constraints, but it means that I'm able to catch up with those who I wasn't able to watch every single day. So I shall be looking forward to that over the next month. Although I need a rocket up my backside, I'm so unmotivated at the moment. I'm just struggling to get anything done. I'm doing it. I'm forcing myself to just get on, but I'm so sluggish and everything's taking a really long time. It's almost like my brain is making it more of a big deal. So that's partly why I didn't do Vlogtober, because I didn't feel I had the capacity to do it. Not just a mental capacity, but a time frame capacity. Bill and Wilf have started new schools. Bill's at college now, and although he has settled in really well, it's a massive adjustment to his routine and our routine. It's not a 9 to 3:30 setup, so that's been a bit of a juggle, not in a terrible way, but just a shift. And I'm not good with change. Wilf, he wasn't on the list of kids who would struggle to settle, but he has struggled. He's really struggled to find his way, find his feet with new friendship groups, new teachers, new environment, new schedule, new routine, new expectations, the whole lot. And he has been an absolute turd. Yeah, my beautiful surprise sunshine baby, who was an absolute delight and was the most exquisite toddler, the sweetest child, is a turd. He's horrible. I really miss him. I'm sure he'll come back, but yeah, he's not having a good time. I do feel that there's a chink in the clouds. I feel like Sunny Wilf he's coming through. I'm going to pop in here some footage that I will record at some point in the next day or two, because I've forgotten to bring down my quilt, the one that I made from shirts that Toby had ruined. He'd worn out the collar and the cuffs. So I chopped them all up and I've made like a checkerboard quilt out of them, and it's absolutely lovely, and I sleep under it every night at the moment because it's cotton, so it's not too hot, not too cold, and it's just, I don't know, I love it. So I have my wool duvet, then I have my cashmere pashmina, and then I have my patchwork. My patchwork looks rubbish in our bedroom. It doesn't go at all, but I don't care. So I'll insert some chatter about that now. There it is. Isn't it lovely? I had a hot water bottle in bed last night. That was gorgeous. So this is what I mean by I have this is all cotton. The insert, the wadding is cotton. Then I have my cashmere poncho, pashmina I mean. Then I've got my wool duvet. Oh, it's lovely, it is. Ooh. I should have made my bed the second I got out of it because, hi Mugs, now I've looked at it, I want to get straight back in. Oh, it looks so nice and inviting. Yes, it does. It looks so good. I'm going to dig it up. I was really pleased. I got most of my corners butting up together. That's because I do the nesting, seam nesting thing. I've had a few people ask me to show you how, but honestly, there's some brilliant tutorials out there. If you just Google seam butting or seam nesting patchwork, you'll find some brilliant tutorials. And then I just, on my sewing machine, did this quilting stitch. I just went from corner to corner. And I didn't draw any lines, I just aimed for the right place. In some places, I got it back on. Margot, stop it. And in some places, I drifted. This is just stupid dog. Oh look, there we go. I drifted there. Not by much, but some of them I drifted loads. But not many, which is why I'm having a hard time finding it.
Also on the back I had some of that puckering. I can't remember what they call it. There's an actual, oh look, there's a thread there. Oh, I'm blurry. I can't remember. I can't remember what they call it when you have that sort of folding, puckering thing. There's a word for it. Look, there you can see. I've got it worse in another place, but... Oh, there we go. But by the time I spotted it, I decided you really wouldn't notice. It brings all the more homemade, homespun charm, doesn't it? There we go. Make yourself a nest.
Hope you liked my quilt. I really like it, but I don't think I'll make another one like that in a hurry. Cross that off my list. How's the light? It's all right. Oh, I never relit my candle after getting interrupted earlier. There we go. So while I'm up, I'll tell you about my soiree. I knitted, started ages ago. I don't know when. Oh, Margot's just sighed. I started knitting the soiree from this book, Knits About Winter. Soiree. The soiree is pretty much the reason why I ordered this book. I love this book. I absolutely love it. It's so beautiful. It's beautifully laid out. All of the pictures are just... Oof. I love them. It's a stunning, stunning book, and there's little bits of writing about things enjoyable about winter, and it's genuinely a beautiful book, like a coffee table book. And there are several patterns in here that I would like to knit. I'd like to do the Persephone mittens and the mitten liners. I would like to knit this Winterberry waistcoat, but I would make some modifications. I wouldn't want the bobbles just because I can't bother to knit them, and I'd put the cables on the bust over a bit further because otherwise they'd be directly on my boobs, and I prefer them to the side of my boobs. However, the patterns, or the pattern for the soiree isn't it's not the best pattern I've followed. I've made a beautiful jumper, I think. So it's absolutely lovely. I knitted it from some yarn that my friend Catherine sent to me. She sells it in her shop, Bed of Roses, and it's absolutely lovely. It's Roma. I'm going to insert some footage here. And it's so soft and beautiful and natural wool and a lovely potato colour. We do knit-alongs together, just very casual knit-alongs, and we call them our potato knit-alongs because I like knitting things in potato colour and she likes potatoes too. She finished hers before me, and I was so glad that she did because, as I said, the pattern leaves you guessing occasionally. Basically, I got gauge, but it then said here to knit a certain number of repeats before doing the minimal neck shaping. Well, when I did the certain number of repeats, I had a really tiny armhole. So I messaged Catherine, that's how she actually says her name, and I said, can you measure yours? Because mine just doesn't seem to be working out. And on the schematics, there's no specific measurement for that bit. But if you did the maths, it would come out at a number that just seemed way too small. So luckily I had hers to reference. She said to me that she'd not found it the most easy to follow pattern, but wondered whether it was because English is her second language. But it's just not, doesn't hold your hand quite as much as the indie patterns do. And there are some errors and there are some stupid things in it. That of course, when it's a book, no, they don't know who's bought the book, so they can't send you out the errata. And even when you check the errata online, I think there's still some issues with that. Don't quote me on that, but I still struggled. It was silly things, like they would say, knit along here. What did they say? Hang on. Let me just double check myself. Oh, that's right. It would say knit from here to here, then put these stitches on scrap yarn and then knit to there. Well, if you knit to there and then put these on scrap yarn, you've got your working yarn stuck over here, and then you've got all of these on scrap. So if you did that, you would have to cut your yarn and rejoin it, there's no point. So obviously, having knitted garments before and done this before, I knew that I had to knit all the way along here and then put them on scrap yarn, but that's just not clear in here. And I think if you've got somebody who is adventurous and just decides that they're going to have a go and knit this, then that is enough for somebody to feel frustrated and want to throw the book across the room. It is for me anyway. The other thing is that the instructions for this honeycomb section here were just so dodgy, and people have said about it on Ravelry, that luckily for me, I had knitted Jules, again So Sweet Violet, I had knitted her flossy socks, so I knew how to do a right twist stitch and a left twist stitch, or at least I knew where I could go to remind myself how to do it. But otherwise, I would have, I'd have been in a right strop. A lot of you say how calming my vlogs are to watch and how kind of steady and calm I appear, but I've got such a fiery temper. I've got a very, let's call it a dynamic personality. I think that is all my gripes, actually. So in a nutshell, my gripes about the pattern for the soiree are that some of the stitches aren't explained very well, some of the measurements don't tally up, and you're kind of left guessing what to do and fathoming things out. Now the light has gone so strange that I either look funny or my jumper looks funny. I can't do anything about that. It's piddling down out there with rain. I need to walk the dog. I have got to have some lunch, and I need to get that done before the chap comes to replace our electricity meter. Just seen the time. I think I might have to stop this and come back, because I'm not going to get the dog walked if I don't go this minute. Pooh, it's really raining. Really badly raining. All right, I'll be back in a minute. The light will be even worse then, I suspect.
She doesn't really want to go for a walk. You do really, really, Bunny.
I don't know if my camera's picking this up, but the sun's out. It's still raining. Plus there's
drops coming off of the trees. And I missed it, but there was a lovely rainbow. But Bunny has been to the bathroom and now she is facing the direction of home. She's had enough. I'm going to give her the choice. I'm going to stand here and stand right next to her. Now, home is the way she's facing and walk is the way she's now facing. Come on then. Come on. Which way is she going to go? Come on then. She's going home. She's going home. She's got her head down. Look at her go. She really hates the rain. Quite wet. It's rather nice out here. The woods smell lovely. Sun's out. No complaints.
Back from our walk. I think Bunny regrets turning back so soon because now it's beautiful sunshine out there. I realised that I forgot to say something else about the soiree top, and that is that, I don't know if you'll be able to see, I might do an overlay footage here. The way the pattern is written, let's see if it's this one. The way the pattern is written means that the cable, can you hear Bunny on the wooden floor upstairs? The cable doesn't keep going like that. It joins here by going whoop. I just think that is a really poor oversight for a designer. It would have not taken much to have made sure that the cable here continued over the shoulder, but as it was, and I checked my numbers, I fathomed it out on a piece of graph paper. Even if the designer had done that, which I accidentally did on this side, you'll be able to see that the cables, they swirl all the way continuously. But because of the row, the designer tells you to do things on or to knit until, you just end up with a great big swirl there. So I don't know, am I being picky? It's probably because I'm used to really well written indie patterns. Although I do feel like this is an indie pattern, but I think what it is that with indie patterns, if they have an error, they get updated. And this one obviously has had a few frustrating ones that have slipped through the net. That would have been a couple of clicks of a button on an Excel sheet to update a PDF file on Ravelry or Lovecrafts or wherever. But that is not, you know, that's me being really nitpicking. I still really love the book. I love the designs. I am a fan of the writer Emily Foden, and her yarn from John Arbon is on my covet list. Because as you know, I am not buying any more yarn. It's going to be really difficult to stick to that because I'm going on the Woolay retreat, the Lay Family Yarn Woolay retreat. Not this weekend, next weekend. And I can't resist Kelly's yarn. And she's got a new base that I'd like to try. So maybe I'll allow myself a couple of skeins of the new non-superwash base. But why was I telling you this? Why was I'm going to have to stop this because there was a point. I need to remind myself what the point was. Oh, that's right. I was saying how her yarn from John Arbon, the Viola range, is on my coveted list of yarns that I would like to try. But because I'm trying to knit through my stash, hi Ben, I'm not allowed to buy any. I'm doing really well actually at knitting through my stash, oh, hang on, distracted. Girls, I love you both. Come and say hi. Hello. Hello.
Hello?
My name is Margot, and I'm an absolute tyrant. You've taught Will all he knows, haven't you? Uh-oh, Bunny's now getting jealous. Hello, Bunny.
Hello. I just want to paw at you and ruin your jumpers again and again.
Yes, you do, don't you? She's completely fully recovered now. Much, much better for having these toothy pegs out. Okay, leave me alone. No, no. I'm still a little bit wet. Not only is my yarn stash dwindling, but also my fabric stash. I did those cushions, didn't I? And then I have been forcing myself to pick a few projects recently. So one of them was taking a ripped sheet and I made 4 pillowcases, just plain white pillowcases for Bill, for his bed, for his winter bed linen. I'll show you 2 more finished things. I'll just whiz through them. But these are stash knitting, stash busting. These are a pair of vanilla socks. I don't remember if I did top down or toe up. Top down by the looks of it. And I would have used So Sweet Violet's simple vanilla top down beanie toe. And I would have used the same as a heel. They do look peculiar like that. Now, I made these actually for Toby, but they're a bit small for him, so I think I've made myself accidentally another pair of socks. West Yorkshire Spinners yarn that I bought down at my nearest wool shop called Alternate Universe. Nothing more to say about those. And then I knitted Bill some socks for his birthday. I showed you in my last vlog. I knitted them out of this yarn that Kelly sent me. Kelly, Lay Family Yarn. I'm going to see in about 10 days. Can't wait. Called Bill's Special Bus. And I had 3 skeins. If this is disjointed, it's because Bunny's woofing. I think the electric meter man's here. Hold on. No, it was the recycling, and I'm very proud about my recycling, so I'm going to tell you. We are a family of 5, and we are quite indulgent people. We are pigs, we eat a lot. Today, I put out our rubbish bin, having emptied all the bins in the house. And in 2 weeks, we had collected 1/4 of a black bin full of refuse. That's all. Basically that much by that much of refuse. Get down. That's all for a family of 5. I think that's really good going. And our recycling, I managed to fit our recycling into 2 crates. You know those sort of plastic crates like that? The recycling easily fitted into that. The only thing that went into our food waste bin were bones that I had made broth from the meals that we'd had. And that's stuff that I couldn't compost. So that shows you how little food waste we have. And pretty much, I'm really pleased with myself. It has taken me 5 years to get to this point of ease when it comes to pre-cycling. I've got it absolutely nailed. I am lucky that I have zero waste refill shops very conveniently placed for me. There's quite a few around here to choose from, but I use the one in my local village because she's literally got everything from gravy granules all the way through to specialist balsamic vinegar. So I am really fortunate. However, people who live near me and have the same size family and the same kind of lifestyle, they have to go to the tip regularly to get rid of their rubbish. So I'm really pleased. It's important to me. It's really important to me. It should be really important to everybody. We should all be doing our bit. If everybody did one small thing, it would make a massive difference. We don't need one person to be perfect. We need billions of people to try and to be imperfect. That's me preaching over. I'm stroking Bunny's soft ears. Get down, get down. Preaching over. back to the socks. So I told you about the needle size and what I've got left over. So I've knitted these rather unusual shaped socks for Bill. They are 52 stitches with a 2x2 bog standard rib at the top, 40 rows of stocking stitch, 40 rows of 2x2 rib again, 40 rows of stocking stitch, and then the toe from, this is good, I'm wearing them, aren't I? The Cinnamon Swirl socks. I had to change my skirt to go for a walk, and I was going to tell you about my skirt because I made it and I'm quite pleased with it, but I'll save that for another day. So when Bill pulls these socks on, it doesn't matter which way he pulls them on, the toe will always fit and the heel will always fit, and he loves them, and he wears them every single night in bed. So I shall knit him some more, but I think I will knit them on a 3mm needle because they're a bit big. But they work really well.
Hello, editing me here. Did I say I held the yarn double?
This is what I'm knitting at the moment. It's called the Humblebee shawl. Oh, isn't it lovely? Oh, that's lovely. Can't see what you can see. Let me poke through my eyeball through an eyelet. Oh, I love it. I'll pop a picture in as to how it will look when it's finished, if I've got enough yarn. I think I do. The measurements say I do, but it's just, hello Margot, it's just looking at it like this, when you think that I've got that whole triangle to fill, and I've only got this much left of the first ball and this much of the second ball. I'm sure it'll be fine because there's quite a lot. It's quite a lot of knitting, and all the rows get shorter. I've done quite a lot of knitting, and now that the rows are getting shorter, it should be all right. I haven't knitted it completely to pattern because who does that these days? We all think we know better, don't we? Especially me. Look at how much I just criticised the soiree pattern. Anyone would think I'd designed myself a jumper. I should just shut up. The pattern calls for a picot bind on, cast on. Where can I put that so you can see? And I didn't feel like mine were big enough. Instead of casting on one stitch and casting it back off to make the picot, I did 2. So they stand out a bit more, which is, I think, it works, especially in this fluffy yarn, because the stitch definition's not the best. I didn't light my candle again, never mind. So I really love the yarn. I'm loving the project. It's a shame really that I made this choice of these 2 yarns because you can't see the zigzag particularly well there. It also made knitting that quite tricky because you basically do the pattern, the zigzag pattern, on the wrong side row. So you can't read your knitting. You can't just look below and see where your knits and purls were, because the whole lot on the back all looks like purls, because you're doing at this point reverse stockinette stitch and stocking stitch. No, yes, reverse stockinette stitch. I know what I mean. You know too, don't you? And then with the bees, there was quite a bit of counting, and then the eyelets, and I don't know what happened, but I dropped my brain out my ear at some point because I've got all these lovely eyelets everywhere, apart from that one. What's happened there? What has happened there? Have I missed a... Oh, it doesn't matter, but I've only picked up the mohair there. I haven't picked up the wool. But along here somewhere, I just forgot to do some eyelets. I can't find it now. Where are they? 1, 2, 3, 4. So most of them have 4 eyelets. Oh, here you go. Look, blind man would love to see that. And then you get to these 2, and I've only got 3. Nobody will notice. I said to Toby, oh, look, I said, I just forgot to put the eyelets in there. I've done the decreases. What a wally. And he said, oh, nobody will notice. And then I said to him, isn't it amazing how this bit of string with a few stitches can create a bee? And he said, it's really clever. It's a bit like being a primitive 3D printer, really, isn't it? I loved that. Featuring the primitive 3D printer. Now this yarn, there's a nice tail behind this yarn. Nice tail for me. And it all links up, which makes this pattern the perfect pattern. Nearly 6 years ago, 6 years this Christmas, our good darling friend Kate passed away very quickly after a recurrence of breast cancer. And just before she started to feel poorly, we'd had a weekend away together at Goodwood with all the kids, and we'd gone back to our accommodation, which at the time was our Airstream caravan. And Kate and I and all the children were just in the caravan, just having a drink and chilling out. And I had a mustard coloured crochet shawl that hadn't really worked out the way that I wanted it, so I was unravelling it. And previously to that, in July, Kate had got, because of the lymphedema that she had left over from her treatment, she kept getting swelling in her fingers. So she wanted to get her wedding ring off, but she couldn't get it off. It was really bothering her. So when we were on holiday in Spain in July or August, we tried every trick in the book to get that ring off. But because she was so hot, because it was Spain, it was blooming hot, it just wasn't going to happen. And it wasn't causing any major issues. It was just annoying her. So we gave up in the end. But we'd done the thing, or we'd seen online how you can wrap and wrap and wrap and wrap your finger with cotton or wool or string or something, and then you can wiggle off your ring. And we tried to do that in Spain. It hadn't worked. And then while we were sitting end of September, and it was quite cool in the caravan, she'd got hold of one of my balls of yarn, and without me knowing, she'd been wrapping it around her finger. And then she said to me, look. And I looked, and it was nearly off. She went, shh, don't scare it. And it popped off, and we were high-fiving, and we were so pleased. And it was just one of those moments in time that, had she not have died, probably would have remembered, but it wouldn't be so crisp in my mind. Then when she died, that yarn became something I really clung on to in a bit of a strange way, really. When I went to see her in her coffin to paint her nails, I took some of the yarn and I tied a little bit on. I didn't tie it on her wrist, actually. I tied some on my wrist. I tucked it up her t-shirt so it was with her. I don't know why I did it, but I did. And I wore that little piece of yellow string wool, until it fell off. And weirdly, it fell off the day I got my bracelet that she'd bought me for my 40th. I'd got it back from the jewellers because it kept springing open and I kept losing it. And I'd got it back from the jewellers, and I'd had a safety catch put on it. So weirdly, as soon as this was back and secure on my wrist, I noticed that morning I'd got my little yellow piece of yarn around my wrist, and that evening it was gone. Anyway, it's just me putting importance on things, because I think when something horrendous like that happens, you cling on to anything comforting, don't you? So the yarn had become a big deal to me, and I wanted to knit something lovely with it, but I couldn't decide what. So 5 years later, fast forward 5 years later, I decide I'm going to make this humblebee ball. Humblebee, I can't say it, humblebee shawl. And chatting to my friend Amy, who is Taylor S Studio, she said that she was moving this yarn on to the charity shop unless I wanted it. And I said, yeah, I will hold that together with my yellow yarn, my mustardy yarn, and I'll make the humblebee shawl with it. So that's really lovely. I'll have my two friends mingled together. I did the gauge swatch and I got gauge, but I didn't like how the yellow looked with this, but I really liked this colour. So I decided that I didn't need to keep the colour, I just needed to keep the yarn. So I overdyed this with brown food colouring from my friend Julie, who used to make decorated cakes, and she'd got a load of that sugar paste, is it dye? Icing colorant. She'd got loads of that she was getting rid of because it was out of date and you can't use that, can you? So I overdyed my yarn with it. And when they are, oh, this light's awful. Sorry, guys. Guys? Anyway, I love, I really like, can you tell, how this is turning out. It's just so beautiful. I think I might have to start alternating yarns now, because otherwise I don't think, they're pretty similar, but I don't think that it will be as seamless. I think you'll see the change, even though this is all garter stitch from now on. I'm very much enjoying knitting that. I've been a little bit obsessed with it. I love how the yarn feels in my hand. I love the love I'm knitting into it because of the connection it's got with Kate. And really, I don't have a lot of Kate left. There's no grave to visit. She's still in, her ashes are still in the box at the top of James's stairs, so I believe. Not scattered them yet. And my memory's so awful that memories do fade, so I've been enjoying knitting that shawl very much. As I'm editing this, I realise you can't really see the bees on that video, so here you go, have a look at the bees. And the reason why bees are poignant is because Kate and I had a really silly catchphrase that came from Big Brother one year when we were watching it in Spain. It was where Pete, the guy with Tourette's, I can't remember exactly what happened, but he started going, there's a bee in the pool, there's a bee in the pool. And then when we went swimming, there was a bee in the pool, and we started going, oh no, there's a bee in the pool, there's a bee in the pool. So there is a bee in the pool. It was just a stupid thing we used to say quite often to one another. And so having bees on this shawl makes it fit the brief. Look at that mistake I've made there as well. I don't know what happened. I think I probably knitted two together rather than slipping two and passing a slip stitches over. I don't know. I don't know how long this is going to be once I put all the bits together and once I cut out the stupid bits, but it's probably quite long, so I'm going to rush through a few things now. One of them is books that I've read recently, and the other is a little bit of pottery that I did. I made some little pumpkins, which is what Bill calls them, pumpkins. ever so easy. I think you can see how I did it. I made a pinch pot, I squished it, I squished the edges in, I squished that, I made a stalk, I stuck them together, fired them, glazed them, fired them, ta-da. But I've only done 2. So I'm going to make plenty more, and then I shall give some away. I've got people who I've got friends who I think would love them, so I shall make a load of those. Quite a pleasing little pottery job, that. Right, books then that I have read. I'm just going to whiz through these, apart from 3 books that I really want to talk about. Okay? KK, as the youth say. I read a book that my friend Cherie sent to me called The Impossible Girl, which I very much enjoyed. It's set in the 1800s, late 1800s in New York, about a resurrectionist and her dual life and a secret that she is hiding. And it was very interesting in many ways, but couldn't put my finger on it. There was just something about it. I mean, it was obviously fiction, but there was just something about the way it was written. It was just too neat and tidy. But it was good. I enjoyed it. I finished it really fast. Also, Cherie sent me Court of Thorns and Roses, but I started reading it. I've read up to about page 38, and I'm finding it a bit of a bleak, dreary, bit miserable. Does it pick up a bit? Cherie says just carry on. It's a really good story and you will like it. But I'm just reading it and thinking, oh God, oh, poor thing. How uncomfortable living like that. I read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, which I really enjoyed. I very much enjoyed the Sliding Doors film, where you can have alternative versions of your life depending on how you live it and what choices you make, or whether something happens and it thwarts you. Same as Matt Haig's Midnight Library, where each different decision gives you multiple different opportunities for the way that your life might take its direction. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue was very similar to that. It kind of as well put me in mind of The Time Traveller's Wife, although those 2 books are very different. It's a different sort of thing, but also the sort of same sort of thing. I loved it. I really very much enjoyed it. And my only criticism would be that we didn't have so there's the main character Addie, and then another main character comes in. I felt like we didn't get enough of that main character introduced halfway through the book, and I would have liked to have seen that character a bit sooner. I then listened to Dorian Gray. Oscar Wilde is wild. It was nothing like how I was expecting. For a start, I thought Dorian was a woman. It's not, it's a bloke. Lord Harry, his social observations kind of blow your mind, and they sort of still stand now as well in many ways. The King's General, I read that was Daphne du Maurier. If you enjoy Daphne du Maurier books, then you'll enjoy this, because that woman knows how to tell a story. She really does. And this one was an interesting one because it was... Oh, Toby's home now. He's going to interrupt me. Anyway, this... The King's General was inspired by historic fact, but also some history about the house, that her family home. So she sort of wove them together. And it's also a love story in many respects. And I recommend it very highly. Read it. I read The Blue Castle, which is by L.M. Montgomery. Cherie gave me that as well. And L.M. Montgomery wrote the Anne of Green Gables books. So you kind of know what you're going to get. And oh, I loved it. I loved that book so much. It was gorgeous. Read it. I read Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris and Mrs. Harris Goes to Manhattan. They were ridiculous. I loved them as well. Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris is out at the cinema or on film now. And it does divert quite a bit from the book, but you still enjoy it. Right, I'm going to go and talk to Toby and come back in a minute. The sun's come back out again. Look, can you see my rainbows? Where did I get to with my books? I said about Mrs. Harris, didn't I? I recently listened to a book called The Long Way Home on Audible by Mark Boyle or Doyle, I can't remember. One of you guys recommended it to me, said that because of my ecological bias, that I'd probably enjoy it. Well, I did. It was brilliant. Very much thought-provoking and terrifying at the same time. The thing that worried me that he really highlighted, so this guy, he's basically living a self-sufficient life, making as little impact on the environment as possible. So he has gone from being a vegan animal rights protester to hunting for deer, 1 deer a season, and making use of every single element of that deer. So nothing goes to waste. And given thanks for its life and for the life it will then give him. You're licking me, you're driving me nuts. Lie down. Lie down. Good girl. And he also highlighted to me the fact that we are so many years into industrial life now that the skills of the everyman that we used to have to make our own clothes, to tan our own leather, grow our own food and cope without industry, we've lost the skill. We've lost the skill. So it's really important to do things like teach yourself to weave, to weave willow baskets. So lastly, the 3 books that I listened to, these 3 books. Ali from Little Drops of Wonderful, This Little Wonderful Life, read recently or listened to on Audible Harold Fry, The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry, which was narrated by Jim Broadbent and written by Rachel Joyce. And she spoke about it so warmly with full recommendations. So I thought I'm going to spend one of my Audible credits on that and I'm going to listen to it. Oh, I loved it. I loved it so much. I loved Harold. That book was like slipping into a warm bath. It was beautiful. It canvassed some very difficult subjects like grief and loss and marriage problems and breakdowns, but done so beautifully. And then when I realised that there was a follow-up book called The Love Song of Queenie Hennessy, I jumped straight into that. And that was read by Celia Imrie, who, what an actress. To have painted the pictures in my mind just with her voice and her way of reading out the words written on a page wonderful. Same as Jim Broadbent, just something pretty spectacularly special. And that book, well, it's quite difficult sometimes to follow a book, a sequel to something that you've already fallen in love with. But all it did was enhance how much I loved Harold Fry and how much I love Queenie Hennessy, who is one of the characters out of Harold Fry. I should mention that. I'm not very good at articulating myself, but I know what I mean. And then there's a third book that's very recently come out called Maureen Fry and the Angel of the North. Maureen Fry is Harold's wife, and this one's a really short book. Short, but no less more meaningful and touching and incredible as the other two. I've never read 3 books, a trilogy of such ordinary people and ordinary lives that have stayed with me like this and touched my heart and had such a meaningful impact, and also not disappointed. I mean, to be able to create that master craftsmanship of magic writing, not that it's not magic like Harry Potter, just magic as in wonderful. To me, it spoke to my soul. I just adored it. I absolutely adored it. And the thing that I really liked about all 3 books, now that I've read them, and I'll try to say it without saying too much, it will make no sense to you until you've listened to or read the books, is that each person... Oh, Toby's shouting to me. Hold on then.
No.
What do you mean no?
No.
You said you want me on it. I said yes, come on then.
No.
Is that because you're an angry gnome?
Yes.
There he is. What I was saying about the 3 books. Oh, in the 3 books, each person, would you say they have an epiphany? So they kind of, they absolve themselves of guilt and wrongdoing without having to get the person they perceive they've wronged to forgive them. So basically they forgive themselves without having to or being able to go to the person they perceive that they've wronged and have forgiveness from them. They kind of reconcile themselves to the fact that they're human, they made a mistake, they did their best, and they come to terms with it and they come to peace with it in a really well written way. In fact, I've never written a book review before, but I did on Audible. I don't know if this is a rubbishly written review or not, but I'm going to tell you what I wrote because I was quite pleased with it myself, if I'm honest, because I've never done one before. I said that Rachel Joyce, the author, knows how to articulate life and grief without sentimentality or overemphasis. How she manages to take these subjects and thoroughly canvas them through heartwarming and uplifting stories is a gift. I feel those books to me have been an absolute gift, and I miss them, and I wish that I could wipe them from my memory and reread them and love them all over again. But Rachel Joyce does have other books out, so I think I will dip into those instead. Right, that is me done. Let me know about Court of Thorns and Roses if I should pursue that. And also, I just want to give you a heads up that my friend Angela, my podcast friend Angela from Knitting on the Farm, I only do that because I've got real life friends. I've got podcast friends who I now know in real life, who are real friends. And I have podcast friends who I haven't met, but if we did meet, we probably would be friends. So that's why I did that. Angela has the podcast Knitting on the Farm, She's based in Northern Ireland, and her husband and her have a dairy farm. And she is also a beautiful knitter and has designed several beautiful patterns, and she has a sock pattern out now. And if you hop over to her Ravelry, you can get 10% off with this code. I think it's SGS10. I'll put it on the screen so that you know. So that's quite a good one, maybe for getting yourself prepared for Christmas Eve cast on, if that's something that you enjoy doing, or an Advent cast on. So thank you for watching, and I hope that this wasn't as bad as I think it's going to be, with all of the edits and the cuts and the dogs pestering me. You can't see now, but I've got Bunny here wagging her tail and just pushing at me with her nose and hitting the screen. Come on then. Ugh. Ow. Bunny, Margot's just bitten Bunny. They are tyrants. I think it's because I'm sitting here talking to the camera and they get jealous. Right, I'm going to go and make my Christmas cake now and make some licking potato soup and reduce down some stock that I made from some bones, and wait for the electric man to come and pack away some laundry. Yeah. See ya. Oh, if you liked this, love it if you would subscribe. And if you don't want to subscribe but you liked it, maybe have a look at my back catalogue and see if there's anything else you'd like to watch, because YouTube loves it when you stick with a channel or when you click like. I'm acting like Nigella.